Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, your real estate voice and the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, many home sellers fear the inspection. Many people think that most buyers want to purchase their home as is. What are some of the things that home sellers have to watch out for during home inspections to make sure that there's not damage to the systems in their home?
Well, Richard, it's pretty exciting process for me just because every week I have some kind of surprise happen, and it shouldn't be happening. In the state of Colorado, there is no license, there is no qualification. Home inspectors are not regulated at all. So I could be a home inspector. I've seen landscapers inspect my listings. I've seen the daddy of the buyer inspect my listings. I don't know how qualified they are or not, but at the end of the day, stuff happens. So their job is to come in and evaluate the systems of the house and determine whether or not anything is broken so the buyer can ask for repairs. That's essentially their mission. And through my years of experience, I've seen some crazy stuff take place. I had one inspector out in Peyton on a well property that basically turned on every single faucet inside and outside of the house and ran it for 4 hours. Now, this home had a well. So, guess what happened? They ran the well dry. They ended up sucking sand up through the well pump into the plumbing fixtures. And then I get a text from the seller going, "Why is there sand in my sink?" I'm like, "Oh no, I knew exactly what happened." And so I've had inspectors, break plumbing and cause flooding in the basement. I've had two of them actually stick their foot or their, stomp through inside the attic and break through the drywall into the house. I've had them pull toilets without permission. One of my favorite ones most recently. So the reason why they're pulling toilets is this started in 2018, where all of a sudden they decided that, well, we don't have termites, we don't have those problems. So let's just check the sewer line and make sure that the sewer line's intact, because that could be a system that could fail over time. Okay. So if they couldn't find a sewer clean out, which is a big 4-inch white pipe or black pipe, and it has this cap on it with a square looking screw, if they couldn't find it, I was finding initially the inspectors were going down toilets, down tubs, and with their little cameras and scratching these fixtures. Then they thought they got smart, and without permission, they started just removing toilets and running their sewer line down the hole for the toilet. The problem is they weren't trained, they weren't skilled enough to reseat the toilet. So they cause leaks. I had one just a few weeks ago, even though he was told in my instructions, do not pull a toilet unless you have a licensed plumber in place. What he did was, it was down in the basement. He pulled the mat over. It was like a silicone tub mat to protect his knees. And then when he reseated the toilet, the mat was stuck underneath the toilet. And so, we get the inspection objection where the buyer asked for the missing toilet to be installed. And we're like, the seller's like, "Well, that's kind of funny because I think I've been using that toilet." So he went down to check it and he sent us a picture of this bath mat stuck underneath the rim of the toilet because the guy didn't properly reseat it. That's the kind of crazy stuff that takes place on a regular basis. Just in the past 2 weeks, I had inspectors check the sewer line by going through the roof vent. Now, I'm not a plumber. I don't know, Richard. What do you think about that? You go up to the roof to check the sewer line.
I'm not a plumber either. It seems to me that we're now at the point where, for some of these inspections, they're doing things to justify their job as opposed to looking for legitimate problems that just might be there.
Right. And this was a house that has a brand new sewer line that had sewer cleanouts. It's like, why didn't you go the proper way? Why do you have to crawl up on the roof and run these pipes all the way through the entire plumbing system? It's just insanity happens on a regular basis. Just a few weeks ago, um, after the inspection, the seller said, well, we were told tomorrow, this is right after the inspection, they're going to come and dig holes in the yard to check the sewer line. I'm like, whoa, stop, hold on. They don't have permission to do. Where is that coming from? So I asked the agent, and I said, who checked the sewer line? Did you pull a toilet to do that? He goes, no, we brought in a sewer excavation company. I'm like, what? Guess what sewer excavation companies do? They excavate to fix sewer lines. So why would you bring somebody like that to an inspection to check a sewer line? It made no sense to me. It seemed like a complete conflict of interest. Of course, they're going to say the sewer line's broken because they're in the business of selling new sewer lines. It just, anyway, that's those kind of things happen on a weekly basis. Now, the objective of the inspection is to confirm that the home systems are functioning properly. However, the seller in the contract, it says the words, the home is sold as is, where is, with all its faults. Now, they can inspect anything that they want, but they have to do it properly. And it's not really, inspection is not really designed to tear apart the house to see everything that you could see. So most home sellers assume their home is being sold as is, but the inspectors come in, they look for problems, and then many times the buyers start asking for new stuff, upgrades to things that weren't already installed in the house. So there's all kinds of things that come under scrutiny for an inspection. They're going to check all kinds of stuff. They're going to check the sewer lines. They're going to check the furnace. They're going to check septic systems. They will look as far and wide as they can to find issues. However, it's still a point of negotiation. So once a seller accepts a contract, it's not a done deal yet. The buyer still has to do their inspection. They may ask for repairs, and then you're negotiating again, and then they do an appraisal. The appraiser may ask for repairs. Then you're negotiating one more time till you finally get to the finish line. So it's a little crazy, but the question is, if the inspector does any kind of damage, who's responsible for it? Well, actually, at the end of the day, it's the buyer. That's what it says in the contract. They can inspect anything they want, but if they break something, the buyer is responsible. So really the only leverage a home seller has at that point, if like that one situation where they ran the well dry, the inspector actually talked the buyer out of buying the house. So the buyer's like, we're out, we're terminating, give us our earnest money. And I said, hold on, Tiger, we need to see what kind of damage you did to the well pump and the plumbing fixtures by sucking the well dry and pulling up sand through all those systems. And we had to have it checked out first before we let that money go. They were lucky that it didn't get damaged, but crazy stuff happens all the time. And many times, if there is something like that that happens, if we challenge the inspector, they won't admit it. Oh, it wasn't me. It was like that when I found it. So you can keep the buyer on the hook for just that, but you just have to really pay attention to what's going on. Electrical is another thing that gets checked a lot. There are certain things that are grandfathered in, like old electrical panels, GFCI circuits. I got an inspection objection last night where they asked for an upgrade to the water heater based on where it was. It was in a closet in the house. It's a 1960s house. So are you saying you want me to move the water heater? I don't get it. You know, it was built like that. You can't, a buyer cannot go in and go, well, we want a new water heater and we want it somewhere else. Basically what it said is, well, the water heater overflow valve is there in a closet and it could scald somebody. I'm like, it's behind a closet door. You'd have to open the door and put your hand under that little overflow valve. It's like, who wrote that? I don't know. They drive me crazy every single week. So I have to help my sellers wade through all these issues. At the end of the day, what it says in the contract that any system that's working at the time of the contract is the seller responsibility to still be working at closing. So, okay, but that doesn't mean they get new stuff. So it's every single week I get really interesting challenges on the inspection, and you really need an experienced agent to help you through that system. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about basically, are home inspectors liable for any damage that they do in the house? And how do you actually avoid contract failures at the inspection phase? And the best solution to pass your inspection is coming up next. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're interested in selling your home, give Barb a call, 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about how to avoid those red flags on home inspections for sellers. Barb, what are some other home inspection issues that you've seen come up in your career?
Well, Richard, in general, you want to get ahead of certain things. I would say probably 1 to 2 out of every 4 listings I take have some kind of roof problem because hail damage is so prevalent here. So you really want time to negotiate with the insurance company, with the roofer to get the best deal. You don't want to wait until you're under contract and under a 3-week gun in order to get it finished and get to closing. That's just too much stress for people. Other things that you should take a look at, if you have a wood deck, wood really takes quite a bit of beating in this climate. You want to make sure that you're very familiar with your systems. And if you have any systems that are unique, you want to be there for the inspection. The inspectors and the agents will actually try to kick you out of your own home for the inspection. Would you like that, Richard?
No, I most certainly would not want that, especially if they wanted me gone and they expected me to leave, a teenage daughter or somebody behind while they're there.
Right. I've even had them, I've had buyer's agents ask me, this still goes on every week. Can't you just give out the combo to the inspector, this unlicensed inspector, and let him in the house for 3 hours and just go at all the systems? We'll see the report afterwards. And the answer is no. You better be there. You better be there for the whole entire time. And I have actually caught agents opening the lockbox, letting the inspector in and leaving. So that won't happen on my watch because we're checking them. So you want to make sure you have somebody that actually has your back when it comes to inspection, because all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. If you would like to find out more about inspections, we have this free report called The 11 Things You Need to Know to Pass Your Inspection. You can download that report if you go to barbhasthebuyers.com and click on the green button, free reports, or give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing why would a home seller accept backup offers. Barb will explain that.